this is Tim Beckley, and welcome back to my unfair, unbalanced, unedited paranormal series. I'm here tonight in the mystical town of Sedona, Arizona. It's one of my favorite places in the United States. I usually come here once a year. In fact, I'm privileged to be in the home of Paul Davis. Paul, maybe some of you have heard of him. I'm sure a lot of our fans have seen his movies, including the Showtime special on Roswell. And I know Paul for many years. I've interviewed him for UFO Universe and other publications. He's a great guy. But I'm not here to interview him tonight. I'm here to interview someone else, someone very special. Her name is Raven De La Croix. And she's known on several levels. She's an actress, an exotic dancer, and very much into the metaphysical, and we want to find out about all of these things. Now we have just about an hour, so we're going to have to cram an awful lot of stuff into it, but boy, I'm going to get busy with it. Raven, you were born and raised in New York City. You've come a long way, and you've done an awful lot of things in that time. Now, let's start out. When you were in New York, what did your parents do? What kind of life did you lead? Where did you live? And I understand you had several UFO experiences even at an early age. Tell us a little bit about, kind of get us going on this.
Alrighty then. I was born in Manhattan, raised in the Bronx, and from 5 years old I was looking out at the George Washington Bridge, and I would see not only crap, but I had this overwhelming feeling of just watching, and I couldn't do much. And so it started at that age and moved forward. Mm-hmm. As far as being raised the oldest of 8 kids, I was kind of the female Harry Potter, that long ago. So it was interesting because I learned a lot about children, being oldest of 8 kids. Mm-hmm. And lucky for them, I was fun. Used to sing Davy Crockett with a coon hat and everything. And so I'm glad that I was able to be that way.
Did you have any what were your most early reminiscences of mystical experiences?
Well, starting when I remember, the 5 was in Manhattan, and then later on, I don't know the earliest. I keep on saying 5, and I don't know why that's a number, but it always comes up when I'm thinking about that. And later on down the line, I would be living on those walk-up apartments in New York, 6 stories, and my mother would just be up late, and I would be walking from the bedroom into the kitchen, ready to step out the window, and
you were ready to step out the window?
And she thought I was sleepwalking.
Did you think you could fly?
Well, no, I think that was my exit for some reason, that particular window, because when in that particular time, that was during the gray situation, which is, I have a different slant on how that all happened, but and there was like dimensional. Like the orbs go behind things. When I film orbs, they'll be present, and then they'll go behind something that looks like thin air to the naked eye, but it's as if you can see half of them as they go into the slip. So I'm not technical, so I don't exactly scientifically know what that is, but I've actually witnessed it on several occasions. Not only with the grays, they talk about grays coming through the wall. It's kind of a slip.
Well, in fact, you talk about experiences in New York. There's a woman there who I've met several times, fairly good friend of mine, Linda Cortelia, who Bud Hopkins wrote a book about. Apparently there were several witnesses. Not only did this happen to her, but witnesses to this experience where people actually saw her being levitated outside her window into a ship over the Brooklyn Bridge. So did you have ET experiences? Were you abducted at an early age, do you think?
I absolutely know I have been.
Well, what were your memories of that as a child?
The earliest ones, I think, as I say 5, I can remember just feeling kind of numb when I was like laying in my bed, and I would always want a cold bottle. My sister was younger than me, and she got the cold iced milk, at night, and so I would remember on the nights that this would happen, I would, request that, and I would remember, freeze framing out the window, and I could see the George Washington Bridge on the 8th story. We'd walk up. No, there was an elevator, and then I just remember things just getting kind of white, and I felt like ether. I never liked ether because it's kind of sulfur, like dimensional thing that people do associate with that. And so that was my earliest I didn't know it was sulfur, but ether kind of correlated with that. And when I was a kid, when they put me in surgery, I would kind of flash back when I would smell ether of this thing, like windows. Here's an 8th story, you know, and I'm seeing ships. And I used to go to the roof, and I felt very angry because I was not happy with it, where I was, whatever the mission was to be here, you know, because I felt like I was in the wrong place, because I was definitely a stranger in my own home.
Did you, now, these experiences that you had at that time, do you think they are related to what has transpired since then in more recent years?
Absolutely. Because I feel, I mean, I'm old enough, I'll be 65 in August, so it's like I've lived
Beat you by a month.
Yeah?
Yeah, you'll be 65 in a few days, if you want to send presents.
That's right. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's
Okay.
fine, you know.
We can.
Still feeling like not a teenager exactly, but
Well,
yeah, doing
raging
pretty
hormones
good.
with no discernment is okay to give up. I mean,
Well, I still have
raging
those.
hormones with discernment, and you might have a little fun, you know.
Well, okay, so you went to school in the Bronx?
No, I went to school in Riverdale, and that was like the Catholic school, and then I purposely flunked because I always say the story, but you know, when I think of New York and someone asks me where I'm from, is they said even the Jewish kids are better than you know, us as a class. So I decided to flunk high school so that I could find out what the rest of the world was all about. Just a cute metaphor how, you know, people own their little worlds. And
now, did you tell your parents anything about these experiences?
Well, when I was young, like under 16, I really didn't know what they were because of the type of stress that went on with the 8 kids and the parents and the stepfather and all that. You know, I was always taught to be on guard. I think there's some kind of book they write about dysfunctional kids, how, you know, you learn certain survival skills, you know, and how to, or else you succumb and you become a victim of them. So I guess I wasn't going to become a victim. So I was learning how to perceive danger. And because it was a dangerous environment for several reasons. Because at that time, I would have these dreams, and I always thought my mother was angry, and I was always frightened of her, and then the stepfather was frightening. So when I was a kid, I thought it was them. But then the doctors came, and I hadn't seen, you know, any pictures of Greys at the time, and you know they weren't talking about it when I was 5 years or 10 years old. So I thought they were nightmares because I was unhappy. And I always started drowning in my lungs. I had pneumonia, like, constantly, because I guess, you know, didn't feel comfortable here. And then that was the early thing.
Now, you mentioned there were 7 other children?
Yeah, I was the oldest of 8.
Did any of the other children in the family have any experiences? Did they relate to anything to you?
They really didn't. As far as the creepy stuff, that's usually earthian stuff, you know, we shared some of that, but basically, it was my sister and I that were with the other children. You know how it is. Now everything is a little more merged, but, you know, they still have problems with those kind of integrations. For some reason, we're all children. But anyway, when I escaped from New York when I was 18.
Were you a rebellious child, would you say?
No, I was really from another planet. And I just thought, couldn't believe life was this way. I didn't realize where I came from at that time. And I didn't understand why I, you know, I had such an ideal vision of how people could interact. And I thought they're missing out on so much fun, you know, and it was all this stuff. So it was very reptilian-like.
Had you read any books on UFOs or anything like that?
No, but I was a comic book, you know, person. I liked, you know, the comic
Flash
book.
Gordon? Well, that would have been before your time. But
No,
yeah, it was still around.
I saw Flash Gordon, the TV series and everything.
I was a fan of Captain Midnight. I had a decoder ring and
Did
all
you
that.
really?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. It was more real to me than everyday life.
So how old were you when you fled the...
I was 18.
18. And you headed to Hollywood?
No, I believed in romance, so somebody said I loved you and I believed them. I was just a kid. And after being, you know, kind of, I was just sensitive. I didn't know about ultrasensitives. I didn't know about psychic ability. I was the female Harry Potter. There's no blame there. I was born with muggles. And that doesn't mean muggles are bad people. They're just different than magi. So it was just one of those things. And it taught me a lot because, you know, I virtually got my butt kicked all the way up through life, you know. And it doesn't stop now, but now I know why. so I don't take it personally.
Well, you certainly have had a glamorous life. You've traveled as a showgirl. You've traveled all over the world, or at least in North America here. How did you make? How old were you, and how did you make your way to? I guess Los Angeles.
Oh well, then the man I did marry, the father of my son, he had family in California, so I came out, and so that was kind of exciting, coming out there. And I remember traveling down Sunset Boulevard, and they had auditions for, because when I was younger, and well, before I got married.
Did you want to be a showgirl? I mean, had you thought
No,
about that at all?
No, I just loved dancing.
Yeah.
There was something that music, that certain sound, not just any music, but certain sound. It just activated something.
What was the music of that period? I mean.
Well, I used to dance to Tito Puente and Joe Cuba on the Latin side.
Oh yeah, okay, Latin music then. Yeah.
And then Spill the Wine with Eric Burden. Actually, I was on an album with Elon, from Eric Burden, Spill the Wine, and and I was in the music business part of things. But it's just
the home of the Mountain King.
The home of the Mountain
King, which I always figured there was something a little cultish going on with that song. I mean, if you listen to the lyrics of it.
And what does it say?
Well, the home of the Mountain King.
Okay.
Well, it seems to be a supernatural reference to people that are living inside the mountain. Gnomes, fairies. In fact, I think it mentions gnomes in the song.
Well, they certainly have them here in Sedona.
Yeah.
I heard about it before I moved here.
Yes.
Because I was coming off and on every few years.
Okay, so you're out there. You've made the big move to California.
Yes, and then I went through the usual Earthian stuff, in the sense of, seeing how sad it was that people had relationships and the lack of communication. And I'm not saying this, specifically because of mine, because after that I became a counselor. I wanted to know, why is the sky blue, Daddy? And why when people fall in love and they have this delicious concept that it turns to almost poison every time in some form, or if it doesn't, people compromise and they shut down their hearts, or then they fantasize things that will never happen or make them happen. It's really strange. And I became the mad scientist of, how does it work?
Mm-hmm.
How can I, because I was impassioned by it, I say, because I saw this misery ever since.
What kind of before you got into the dancing and met?
The dancing I was kind of discovered for.
Yeah. Okay, what were you doing before that, though? I mean, as far as like
occupation.
You're just a kid.
I was a kid and just, got out of school and, met this person I thought was romantic, and I thought when someone actually said they loved you that was real. No one could make that up. That's how naive I was. Well, no, but now there's more to it. You just have to recognize like a hallucination from someone who's actually present. It's all it takes. It doesn't take big this, long that, or tall or short. It doesn't take money and fancy cars. It just takes you being present. It's the best present you can give. Because then people know who you are, and then you can be yourself. And if that's happening, you never would this you with anyone else. You never would this you with anyone else. You never this you with anyone else. It's like people don't look at it like that. They have their way that they come, because that's like the security of who we've become or something. And then it's very, very seldom actually very genuine when people are, I love Oprah when she said, she says, no one ever asked me what I really like to do. And she said that, it was the one with Pierce Morgan, was meant to be his first show was her. And I really admired her, because I knew I liked her, but because I'm not a TV watcher really. But I just knew something, that she really was in fact a sister. That she chose to take a hard road to do this. Anyway, she said that she was really, so pleased to be in present time and not have to think of what she was going to say next, or presuppose or project on the other. That she can actually hear that being. And then when this breaking of understanding or relief came over in the sharing, it was like dessert. And I related to that because, with so many people in New York and growing up and being next to people and not really being next to people and being married to people and then having them forget. And so I didn't look at it personally anymore. I started to realize it was the aliens. It's the aliens. No, it's hypnotism.
Well, okay, Raven. So eventually you were discovered. Exactly what were the circumstances of that?
For the dancing or for the...
Well,
for the
how were you, was that your first discovery, working with Russ Meyer? Raven, by the way, was one of Russ's super vixens, I guess you would say. And what were some of the movies that you were in that Russ made?
Well, only one, because we only usually do one unless we make a cameo, you know, and he's just had a handful of films. But I was in Russ Meyer's Up, swinging off trees in the redwoods, and looking at fishes in the water. I was blessed. It was really a gorgeous environment.
How did you meet them? Because he's quite a... I guess it's about... I don't think that there isn't a person I haven't mentioned your name to that didn't know who you were or who Russ Meyer was. He's since deceased, but he certainly was not a Steven Spielberg. I mean, he was had his own little following, and he was known for actresses with big bosoms, basically, right?
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, he was actually patent cinematographer in the war, and he literally, he's very patriotic. Really believes in how we were supposed to believe in everything, and so he went away with film shoots. The first film he made was actually quite cute. It was called The Immoral Mr. T's. And it was where they found these glasses, almost like the alien one, like them, or where they live.
I remember seeing that,
and that other guy.
I remember seeing that on 42nd Street, when he was probably about 17 or something.
Mr. Immoral Mr. T's?
Yeah.
And it was cute that he put the glasses on, then you see this very shapely
he became a peeper, sort of.
And it's like the little tennis skirts
very
of
famous,
the 50s and the tennis
very
jackets.
famous movie in the cinematography.
And then they'd be very pleasantly nude, and they go, wow, this is amazing. So that was like out loud voyeurism without having to break into somebody's home and get creepy,
What year did you make your movie?
Gee, it has to be in the 80s. I'm fairly bad with numbers. Had to be 1980 something. Well, you can look it up. It's on my IMDb.
Okay. Then you traveled all over the country.
I got discovered by 20th Century Fox. That was the
craziest
thing.
Instead
of Lana Turner in the drugstore instead of Schwab's, I was in Joe Allen's restaurant. I was building a tree house in Hollywood Hills. It was, instead of a small place, I decided to make levels with, floating tables and stuff. It was very cute. And so I went for a lunch break, and actually Samantha Mansour, who was casting for Eddie Foy, the famous voice for 20th Century, had filmed, I think they were connected, like Russ did Black Snake, and he did, the Super Vixen, Valley of the Dolls. That's
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls,
That was the second one. First one is Valley of the Dolls, then Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Those crazy chainsaw men.
They were just were. And then, we lost two of the ladies. Tura Satana passed away. She was great. I had a good time with Tura Satana. She was just...
She just died within the last year or something, I think,
last year. And then now, Cynthia. She passed away just recently. April, I think, or something. And so I thought we were all here. I wanted to make this movie called Bosomania. And that we would sit like the Big Chill, or one of those things where you sit around the fire. And I already had the opening scene where we're at Russ's funeral, and somebody hands us with a gloved hand this invitation, and we end up in a resort, and we all sit around and tell how we became, and who we are today, who we were, how we think, and what we bring, because we're all different. There's none.
I was actually in a movie where Russ made a cameo appearance, and one of his wives, Candy Samples, was in the film playing a stewardess. I don't remember the plot because I was only there one day, and I'm not sure that I saw the film. Regardless of that, but I knew actually Kit Natividad and
she was in an airplane. She was in an airplane.
Yeah, right. But anyway, of course, I had a. I've been editor of many different magazines over the years, including what we most people would refer to as men's magazines, but we call them male sophisticates. And
I've never heard that.
You never heard that?
No.
Yes, when you go to see a big distributor, you never say, like a porno or X-rated or anything like that. It's male sophisticates. That way you have an innocent sound.
It does sound innocent.
Okay, so you danced everywhere.
When I danced when I was younger, I was down in Manhattan. I always loved Latin music. Certain Latin artists are really good, and so I was outside of this place, and I just walked through, and I felt the music. Didn't seem to anybody be around, and I wasn't really an exhibitionist or anything. I just learned to be bold, learned to express myself, but it didn't come easy. I was very shy. Didn't really have any confidence, but I certainly had passion.
But you were gorgeous.
Thank you.
And okay, so where did
What?
you? No, I
Did we say-
I knew you were going to say that. Okay, but
okay,
okay, so
right?
you traveled to United States all through.
Well,
the
no. When
United
I was a
States?
kid, I used to dance in the Latin nightclubs, and they had go-go things. It wasn't really any, just the go-go. They glowed in the dark, with the fringes, the whole thing. It was really cute. And I drank, ice. Happen the rocks, and so they'd always say, "Get the kid a glass of milk."
Did you meet any like Frank Sinatra? Any famous?
Oh, later on, and when
Yeah.
I went to LA, but that was a little later. When I went to LA, there was a tryout, and I never did this before. Why would I even think of this? I was like absolutely terrified when I got up there. My higher self gets my lower self in trouble every time. I just go, I just go, duh. Yeah, I see that, and then all of a sudden I'm committed, and then I have to like do something. That's how I get myself into these things, even the things I'm in. Because then I have to follow through.
Mm-hmm. So who all did you meet? That you met big producers?
Well, when it came to LA, I mean, I was, as soon as I got discovered, especially with the Russ Meyer film, there was certainly a lot of auditions that were going on. I had to take somebody with me, make sure they were real auditions.
Yep.
It was like I had a surprising head of some big, I won't mention any names. I didn't kiss either, so it's not that I'm not telling. Just that it's useless. I mean, why? So it's just archetypes. I look at archetypes. How does it all work? Anyway, so, but after that, I don't know. Being in LA, and I always had my own businesses, and it served people in my own business, and we had to be qualified, and like with Elizabeth Taylor, we had to sign agreements. Yes, very sweet. I used to go to her home a couple times a year to entertain, but she's a lovely person. Just lovely person.
Did you ever see any of her great jewelry?
Yes, and I mean, I don't profess to have been in the vaults, but she has a very modest home. I really enjoyed her because she's like, not this, but her version of this. Very comfortable ranch style house. She's got like crystals and things, and just very normal.
Did she have a spiritual or metaphysical side to her?
Yes, absolutely. I think I was there. I did body art for the family, and all the friends, and there was everybody, and everybody was there, and Jay, Jose Bear, everybody, would go there.
She means Michael Jackson, I think.
Yeah, it's true.
What did you think of Michael?
Well, it's really interesting. It's like when the things were happening to him, it was like I never so succinctly channeled for another being, something where I can see the lost place where these people get, and that's where they like powder, and all these references of beings who operate differently, and there was no niche to fit, and if a person isn't reached to the part where they can take joy in being the difference and not feel isolated and be isolated or be so sensitive. I mean, we came from the same heart space where, it's really difficult not to feel, and unless you know that it's the condition of this planet and not you, until you stop inverting those feelings and taking them in as not being enough and lack, that's the lie. Talk about black magic. That's the most black magic I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't look like with black hats and all that. That's just obvious stuff. But the part that's black magic is the part that you buy. And you buy your less than, and that's a lie. There's no insignificance in this universe, and nobody's created here for nothing. And you put yourself here. No one just go, oh, we're going to give you this life, No, you have to just wake up and occupy self, and just like, it's sort of we're in sleep until we can actually own that we are here, and that it doesn't matter what this history was. You just stand up and say, what do I want to do now? How do I feel now? What do I want to do about it? And that's like chutzpah. That's like dragon spit. Just to, because you're not. I mean, sure, you need training wheels, I guess, till you wake up, and that's what the mind and programming is all about.
Now, I'm sitting here in your parlor, and surrounded by crystals, and right outside here, I understand there's a vortex.
Well, actually, right where your setup is the center of the heart energy, but it's.
Will we get maybe some orbs on the.
Yeah, I can actually show you.
Okay.
I can film them on my phone, and you can see them move around. I've never done. The kids showed me that. Our Canadian faction.
All right. We'll try stuff like that. But Hollywood and Liz Taylor and MJ is a long way from the Red Rocks of Sedona.
Not really.
No.
Not really.
Well.
You'll be surprised who comes here. You just can't.
Oh no! I'm not surprised in that regard.
As far in distance, as far.
Well, compared to what you were, kind of what you were doing, being in
I
the
cut my teeth in those places.
Yeah.
Now I'm to the real work.
Okay, so all right. How did you get here?
Gee, the long story, the short story. Well, many lives later, I had many lives between leaving New York and California and making movies and you know, Russ Meyer, from Russ Meyer to what was the next one I made? You know, did a Bill Winkler thing. It was Double the Avenger, you know, where I just played a doctor. It was just a funny, spoofy thing. You can even get it in Barnes and Nobles. And then sci-fi and Frankenstein versus the Creature from Blood Cove. Just fun stuff. And The Lost Empire was one of my fave, you know, because I got to do a lot of things in that time. Wardrobe, did my own stunts, and I got to cut up some of the language. Is kind of silly. Angelique Pettyjohn, that was her last film before she passed away. And Bob Tessier, that was his last one before he passed away. All those guys, they passed away. You better watch it. My number might be up.
Your number's just started, I think.
Avatar body, here I come. For sure. So then, after I, made these films, and I found myself doing eclectic films, rolling up my sleeve, you know, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, just, you know, pH water. It's not wine, pH water. It's delicious. It's the only thing that actually hydrates your cells. So, the elixir of life. And then, many adventures later, I mean, there's so many. It was just like going into a comic book store, and it's mostly comic book adventures that
who told you about Sedona? How did you hear about this?
Well, I actually went to Vandelier with Daryl Lanko, who channels Bashar, and a whole bunch of other people, of which came together synchronistically, the same way one finds another person, because we didn't really advertise we were doing it. Celestine Prophecy was big. Everybody was talking about when you change your vibrational frequency, that you change, you know, your response or reaction to life, because it's alchemical. And then now it makes all the sense in the world, and it made sense then, but now it's expanded. It's like, wow. And so they made a movie finally about that. And
what was it called?
The Celestine Prophecy was really big.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody
I know
was
the book,
reading,
sure.
yeah, the book, James Redfield and everything. And so we decided that we were going to go to Vandelier, and that a whole group of us was going. And then it turned out that other people found out where we were going, and we went in the middle of the Vandelier forest. And
no, where's Vandelier?
Vandelier, New Mexico. It's Vandelier.
Okay.
It's not far from Albuquerque, maybe a couple hours from Albuquerque. But it's very magical land. They have kivas buried in there.
Bashar did...
Bashar.
Did he say there was some reason to go there? I mean, was there a mystical...
No, we invited him. We knew we were going, and it's a long story, and it has some really interesting people. And we went there with camera equipment. Robert Watts, the maker of Star Wars, and he showed up. The most amazing people showed up. We knew something was going to happen, and it did. But what they didn't know, it's just like going to Mexico or Chichen Itza when you're in these certain vortexes, your digitals don't work. But what we experienced was so amazing. It changed everybody's life, because we actually got to see that which people only talk about. We got to experience, you know, things, people popping out of vortexes and stuff. Like the orbs, we see them slipping in and out of space. It's right here. It's just interesting. I think Lazar, it makes me think of Lazar's theory of folding the fabric of space. I'm not sure it's the same thing.
Not Bob Lazar.
No,
Lazar, the mystic,
no,
channel.
No, not Lazarus.
Oh.
No, Bob Lazar. The
Bob
guy
Lazar.
Yeah, Bob Lazar.
The guy that worked at Area 51?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
he
then,
talks about the grid,
uh-huh.
the map, and how you fold the fabric of space. And,
oh, yeah, okay.
You know, and then that's how the
My people know all about Bob Lazar. Some
Yeah.
believe him and some don't.
Well, the thing that related to, I don't know about his stories.
Yeah.
You know, it's different. But I'm looking, I always pick certain things. There's always truth somewhere. Mm-hmm. So the thing that resonated to me was the fabric of space. I was a navigator of this life, and I have a penchant for navigation and stuff and those kind of things. So it just all of a sudden, I can't add, but, you know, give me a grid with, like, you know, some dimensional things, and it somehow makes sense, bionically. But I can't add two and two.
Did you tell me that this book, A Dweller on Two Planets, had some bearing on your experiences of becoming interested in this?
No, I think the Planetary Peace Project portion of our movement here with Harmonic said that was an...
Okay, because I know Shirley MacLaine was influenced by Phibos. Phibos was who was this being from Atlantis. And the book was written about 1885. And we're talking about maybe bringing it back into print. You know, maybe include some work in there too. And kind of,
right.
Because I know it. I even sold that book and read it when I was like 14 years old. And it's something that people today should be aware of. It's in the public domain. You put a nice little cover on it,
Yeah,
and you're all set. Yeah.
Well, you know, the kids today that are in the 20s are now watching Russ Meyer, that was popular, what,
Well,
40 years ago?
Watch Russ
But I
Meyer.
mean, you think because of the nature of,
Yes.
of it, they just love it in his comic book.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how they relate to
It
it.
is,
So,
yeah.
so the people of 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's a lot of decades.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a crossover. Well, cult is cult, right? It's just everlasting.
So you made it here to Sedona, and you
That
set
was
up
a
shop.
relief. I just, well, I had, you know, my poor ex-husband, really good friend of mine, we were together 9 years, Mikey, he's a lovely being, and he had open heart, quadruple bypass surgery, and it affected a lot of things, and he had to be in Los Angeles, and still recovering today, but, you know, I just sprinted him through the whole situation, but after that, and my mother passed away.
And what happened after your mom died? That led you out here, or got you involved in all this now?
Well, you know, when I was in Colorado, I had a kennel-free pet resort for a year, and I had 58 animals that I tended to. And after Michael had to go back to Los Angeles, I had 58 animals in the worst winter in Colorado in 100 years. I'm talking carrying water for the geese and the horses and things like that. And so I learned a lot about animals, and then found homes for all of them because they were left from the lady before. How could you can't even find a home for a cat. Somehow, though, I found the perfect home for those animals. Then I just sold everything I could, and I said, I'm going to Sedona.
Why Sedona? Who had told you about Sedona?
Well, I came to Sedona to film what was called The Elastic Zenith.
Mm-hmm.
And that was telling about the experiences we had in Vandelier, like with Bashar, and all of us ended up and having these 4 days in Vandelier, New Mexico, having these paranormal experiences.
Can we still get that video?
Yeah, yeah.
And what's it called?
The Elastic Zenith.
The Elastic?
Zenith. Yeah, and it won kind of an award, you know, all the little films you did, they just somehow won these little awards in those film festival type of things. And we just put it together with spit and bubblegum, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we went to Sedona to talk about our experiences, because we had the one who held the Topanga Dam, people who could not go to New Mexico at that time. And then those of us who ended up in New Mexico and having this Vortex experience. So then in you know, having this experience in Vandelier, that again changed our lives, because this was like totally profound experiences, I mean, of the paranormal kind. As a matter of fact, the woman in the hotel, when she got wind of what we were doing, she says, you're lucky that Los Alamos, which was close by, or these guys didn't find out what you were up to. And I said, why? And they said, they would have you monitored, you know. And so I guess we were lucky. We slipped through the cracks and had a series of very definitely dimensional experiences.
So now you came to Sedona here, and you at the moment you're running. Well, what do you call yourself exactly? You don't really identify yourself as being a psychic, but you're kind of involved in that sort of work, right?
Well, after many lives that I've led this lifetime, and after having the difficult experience of, you know, having to, you know, just keep friendship apart, you know, partnership with Michael, and having him go back and heal, and me sitting on 2 acres of land on a vortex, crystals popping up where I took orbs like galore, and I was there to close the vortex. That's another story. So after I just found perfect homes for the animals, I just said, I need to go there to just heal, to just be, you know, and because I visited there, but I hadn't ever lived there. And I was 60, so I started over again at 60. You know, 5 years I've been here, renting Paul David's house, and I decided, well, what do I do? You know, I had the kennel-free pet resort, and I said, well, I'll have, you know, that was my communication with animals and living things, which I had a talent for, and a love for. And so I said, well, in Sedona, people are mystics and whatever. And I said, it's probably just perfect. So I just came and rented this house sight unseen, and joined the Chamber of Commerce and all that, because, you know, to set up my business, and because I'm accountable. It's not like setting up a shingle and doing something entrepreneurish, you know. Although what I do is pretty much mom and pop shop. So at my age, I had a collective of experience, loved working with children and animals, and I do counseling in a much different way. It's sort of overqualified to stick it in one particular type of
Well,
counseling.
I know, now we spent a few days with you in Tucson at Alan Benz's World UFO group. My friend Charlotte was there, and quite a few other interesting people, including this gal that I understand you married.
Camille Harmon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first time I heard her abduction story, and I'm going to try to get an interview with her tomorrow before I go back to the East Coast. So you're involved with breathing.
Well, what happened is I had a near-death experience, near-death experience where I was buried under debris, and
what fell on you?
We were playing hide and go seek in the woods, and I didn't realize this kind of a small shack. I thought it was just a small shack, but it had a floor that went down into maybe a basement or some bottom thing. But it was so old that the dust was so fine that I was going to smother.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ordinarily, just out of panic, if I would have breathed in, it would have been all over. I couldn't have even yelled. But somehow it was face down, there was some kind of a pocket, and the only thing I could do, I had debris on top, is that I guess, like if you're drowning, you hold your breath as long as you can, and then some part of me started finding a way to breathe within. And that was the clue. I mean, that was the first time I became acutely aware of this particular breath, because it was how I was staying alive. So 5.5 hours later, I realized when they're closer to where I was that they were looking for me all this time, because everyone was accounted for, and so when they came close enough, I was able to at least chance that if I were to make a ruckus, they could grab me before I could smother. But I thought maybe, if I was lucky, 20 minutes went by. When they told me 5.5 hours went by, I knew I was in a different space. So in essence, I went into like a suspended animated state, to where I was surviving on whatever oxygen lived in my body. I was able to slow down, my heart rate and everything, to be able to sustain myself on automatic. I had no clue that I was doing that. And so that was the beginning of understanding something about breath. And then being friends with Darryl Anka and channeling Bashar and facilitating 2 of his workshops, the only 2 we ever had, channeling workshops, and where he taught, not the channel, but Bashar would go, Darryl would go on state, and that was never done, that anyone knows about, and he would teach the class as the entity itself, or whatever, his future self. So that was when the breathing that he does in order to access dimensional space. And I knew it's a frequency, because one time we're sitting in the class and he's going, line, line, line. We're looking at each other going, okay. And then finally I said, why are you doing that? And he goes, we're mining in consciousness. We're so dense here. That in order, because anytime we had some kind of a interaction, the reality on his side was that there was just as many people, sort of observing how contact was made. They don't do anything but just bring high-frequency messages and see how the Earthians respond.
Now,
but they have to mine in consciousness. I felt pretty...
Sedona is known as a kind of a vortex center. There's all sorts of, last year I was down here and interviewed Tom Dongo, who's had some incredible experiences.
Absolutely.
And scrapbooks with all kinds of photos and just phenomenal.
Exactly.
I'll say that 10 times. Okay.
Yeah.
You've done similar work actually, in a sense. I kind of just glanced through your scrapbook the other day. You have a vortex here. What is that all about?
Well, that's how I got in touch with Ben Lonetree, and about vortex of energy. And then I found out, each like city or place has a heart center in it. So this particular area, especially this house and this area, is the heart of Sedona, and the heart chakra, so to speak, of Sedona. So that's kind of interesting. And then when Ben came to prove, he's the scientist who came to prove that Sedona is a pretty face, because he gave that information, like I think I mentioned it earlier, that he gives currently human residence information to NASA and MIT. So he came here to say, this is my field, there's no way that that's possible, those reports have to be false. And he found that they in fact were not. And then I met up with him at the Xanadu Domes out in Village of Oak Creek, out past where you're staying. And that was set up specific, in this one place, to have a certain frequency. So we were all being measured on his magmometer, which measured our brain waves. And that's when he first noticed that my left and right brain were operating in a very unusual pattern. They were both, instead of being accessed according to subject, however it fluctuates, I was present in both lobes or whatever. And then I said, isn't that interesting? He says, oh, that's curious. I'd like to check that out more. Then he decided, I asked him if he would check out the sound that we were exploring, and it was the Vedic sound of M, that was taken out of the sacred sounds because it sounded too sensual. So they just liked to, that's why we were so stuck on dessert, delicious, and that's a healthy thing to do. So that's how I hooked up with Ben, and Ben was thinking, he was so cute, he was just being my friend, and says, I'm sure that we're going to discover that it feels so comfortable when you do that it's just like a lullaby, like holding, someone comforting me, and that I would probably get a read as a very relaxed meditative state. And what ended up happening is like he was looking at this thing and watching the waves go from high delta on the up breath. As soon as they hit the hover, you don't hold your breath, and it was in free space, which he's now relating to the God particle, where you can, life is, there's some kind of ability to manifest. And then on the way down, it was the to the very bottom, you don't hold your breath. And so the cycle goes, and when you connect, and it goes in, a cyclical pattern, this, you read as if I am currently sleeping 8.5 hours right now, that's on delta, as I am currently completely awake and conscious and having a cognitive, conversational beingness. At the same time that it's registering on the theta that I am in a relaxed meditative state, and at the heart just balances out like a 0 point. And then at that point, that it completely matched his drafts when he went out into a live vortex that was balanced, and he would see that occur. So that opened up a whole new paradigm in why, when I was so ill after having, stressful time with poor Mike and that whole episode, and having to operate 58 animals on 2 acres of land in a vortex, close the vortex, get the animals to safety, grab my baggage, my stick, and my belongings, and come to Sedona.
Well, when you say vortex, exactly what is a vortex, and how does it, what is the word, identify itself, or how do we identify it? Now, you have a gateway here with objects going through. I saw some photos, purple.
I don't exactly know how to explain it scientifically, but when we take pictures of dimensionals coming in and out, like this interterrestrials, General Melchizedek talks about, and the Indians also talked about it quite a bit. They drew depictions of like lizards and stuff like that, and this underground terrestrials. And then you have your like the orbs. I have so many different varieties of orbs that it's not one species. And some of them consider that the vessels that they, like you travel in a vessel and then you manifest. But these, I think, for the most part, are elementals. And because I've taken pictures of like fairies and things like that Tinkerbell exists. Guess what? It's real. Tinkerbell exists. And so with a vortex is a spout of energy. Like Sedona, the whole thing's a vortex. But you like going to like the city, but you go to the hot spot, the nightclub, someplace where there's like a little energy, and you'll usually see them manifest. Not only, but usually in the trees will twist in a specific way. You'll have the same kind of tree, and it's it's not a straight tree. It goes out, but then you'll see this thing where it's just really bent in a specific way, and that's what the vortex will manifest. How the tree lives through that energy.
So I'm not sure exactly how much time we have left. How are we doing on time?
Well, I don't know because of the...
That's okay. How are we doing on the...
It's almost 4:45.
So how many more minutes do we have?
5, 6,
We
like
only
about
stopped
7
for about
minutes.
5 or 10
Yeah.
minutes.
Well, okay. So let's just kind of get to what you're doing today. Then what is the crux of why are we here in Sedona, and what is this all about now?
Well, I came here and created Raven's Cosmic Portal because I figured that it covered everything I did and that I would see, who was organically attracted to come as I manifested what it is I was going to be next when I grew up, starting at 60. So then with the whole culmination, being here was such a relief that I think I finally allowed myself to break down, to break through, because it wasn't like any other place I could really feel like home. This was like home. And so I did so, and as a result, I mean, I was almost dying. I had this one Oriental lady at the center. She was giving me some kind of a test, and she crawled around my body like as if she was an ant, only because I felt like a sausage. I was so encased that you couldn't even indent, places under my ribs. You couldn't even get in there. And it was just energy so solid from holding up the world. And this is what makes people sick, makes people break down. Anyway, so I had to change, and I laid on this floor, after I turned it into this room. And this picture of Alex Gray with the spiritual energy system, it was like I was looking at that, and I was I said, this was a turning point for me. It was like I just was either going to go one way or the other. I wasn't like suicidal or depressed that I knew of, but I just physically and everything, I just felt solid. So I said, okay, Dr. Hugh Lin, what do you mean by Ho'oponopono? What does exactly that mean? Who are you addressing? I'm saying to myself, because I study energy. And then I realized that, the mind, I knew from studying some other work, with Hubbard, about the reactive mind versus the analytical mind and how we have these pictures, and that made sense. He had a lot of good stuff. And so putting together all these different things, and Giorgio Stankov, a Bulgarian scientist living in Germany, and the central nervous system, I started Alex Gray. It just started coming to me. And that night, within 20 minutes, laying on this floor, applying the breath that I speak about, and really
show us the breath real quickly.
Okay. Well, first you got to do the 3 regular breaths, or else you'll get dizziness. Then, like a didgeridoo, you have to warm it up. The premise is that the breath I'll show you, that this breastplate is covering the heart. And scientifically, what Ben had demonstrated with this magmometer was that if you could tone, you could breathe, everything in it registers very nice. But the only thing that we could discover in the sessions that we've had that would actually put somebody on the toroid was this breath that connected from the top, like how a toroid looks like in Thrive, and goes into the earth and comes back like a figure 8. So I call it like the infinity breath, for lack of what else to call it. And then, so you would just start at the bottom, and there's 2 reasons for this. We have a circuit. The circuit puts us in touch with the brain and the mind. When we breathe just like I did this, with that kind of a thing, you're freshening your brain. Now,
okay, do one of the breaths for us now, because what I want to do before we close out, of course, is give you the opportunity to tell people how they can contact you and your websites and so forth. So let's do a couple of breaths now to show them.
Okay, but I just wanted to let them know also that, it's important to have the connection. It's not easy. Don't give up. I'm going to have free instructional videos so that if you need it. And it's like the most important thing is the sound. So you're going, I'm letting you hear me with my mouth open, because otherwise you can't hear me unless I have a microphone right there. And you don't hold your breath. When you hover at the top, it's sort of like a still point. Then you go, and you have to work at this for like 20 minutes. Then you'll hear a rich, So silently, it would be like this. And what happens is you get longer and deeper, more relaxed, and it's not the loudness or the force, but it's the resonance. It's a 432 frequency of the heart, and there's a resonance that makes you rumble, like not here, it's not up in the throat, and that's like, it's just a training of making yourself use your throat a certain way. But what this does, it may sound silly and all that, but it gets to be fun. And you actually, with the breathing that comes before that last step, which is the sound, it actually changes your alchemical properties. If you test your pH before, if it strips, you do it, and then afterwards, it's a different pH. You start alkalizing your body. When you're comfortable in the breath and you learn to, the body will fight because it's used to breathing in the nose first. When it goes down to the bottom of the curve, you'll have a tendency to go right away or through your nose, which is not what you want, and or suck it up too high, like that. So these are things that can be a barrier to deter you, but if you stick with it, you have endorphins that pour out of your heart like medicine.
Well, I can attest the last few days, having hung around here and having worked with you when you were in Tucson, that there's a lot of great information that you have to give to people, but I want to give you the opportunity to tell people how they can contact you and find you on the web.
Okay. Well, you can go to www.occupyself.me, and that talks about sort of instructional of how you can identify the difference between you and your mind. This is revolutionary because it not only changes your DNA. I don't have hepatitis B anymore. I don't need a breast surgery, and I'm working on bone repair. This is documented. The other one is harmonic-project, and we're having videos, music videos, and things that, and we're doing a planetary event where if each of us were able to just want to feel that good, just for fun, never mind the science, never mind what it's to do, that it's known that if, like the wave, we're sending this out on a global broadcast for fun, that people can contribute their 432. There's a ship that they can sign on to. So when we stand over that network, we're not going to take it anymore, kind of a thing. It's sort of like a fun way to do that, where we have the science and we have all the edutainment that you need, but if just the simplest thing is to feel good and to go, and to breathe outside the mind into the larger grid. It's an upgrade. It's like this is the hardware. The Alex Gray spiritual energy system, you can Google that, to see the image, and that is the software, and the up breath and the down is the USB cord.
And also, too, they can find you on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
I
Raven De La
certainly did,
Croix.
too.
Exactly.
Well, Raven, I want to thank you. It has been an extreme pleasure, and I want you to write the story of your life.
Oh, gee, you'll have to help me.
Well,
It's too long. We couldn't even touch anything.
well, maybe it'll be a two-volume set.
Anais Nin. I have a continuing.
Anyway, hope people can come down and see you in Sedona and share this experience with you. Okay.
The close-up of a UFO that's over Cathedral Rock in Sedona, Arizona.
And where was this one taken?
Oak Creek Canyon, Sedona, Arizona. And when I got it, we had nothing. I thought I was doing Ansel Adams. I get home, put it on the computer, and if you go to the bottom frame, I've blown it up, and it's like dilithium crystals. It's like a wheel of light. There's no car. It's just
tremendous.
I've never seen that before. This one was at Bell Rock in Sedona, Arizona.
And what does it show?
It's just it's a very unusual orb. The traditional ones are not like that. And what's even more spectacular is the one underneath it is at Cathedral Rock, and that's one actually behind the shrubbery. This is like
It almost looks like a miniature UFO taking off.
Exactly. So this is off my deck in Sedona, Arizona, and I was just taking pictures of orbs, which that isn't. That was a little light, and when I blew it up on the computer on the bottom frame, by Jove,
Wow.
Tinkerbell exists.
My goodness, there you go.
There it
Peter
is.
Pan, here we come.
And okay, well, this is at a night shot, and so therefore there's no fractal indication or source of light that would cause any kind of a continuum of shape. I noticed that all these particular kind has cobalt on one edge and gold on the other. It's just amazing. This one here, it looks, I don't know if you can see it very well, it's this blue shape, it's huge, and that was my first UFO orb in Sedona, and I have been, ever since I got here, I see them all the time. I can actually see those with my naked eye. And this one was, I was teaching the breath, and those kind of orbs have the cobalt and then the gold, and that was above me, and the whole room was filled with those particular types of orbs. I have this one's spectacular. I saw a series of this coming out of the water and landing in the bush. And this was the most unusual. It's heart-shaped.
Now, are these intelligent creatures, do you think?
Well, I think that they probably are. I mean, the mucousy ones, I don't know if they're on the way in or out, the ones that you see that are less defined. But these things are spectacular formations of...
Tremendous.
Just
Well, this is
beautiful.
what's going on in Sedona, so get your fair bottoms down here and meet Raven and have a wonderful time and enjoy the city. And we'll see you back east. And thanks again. This is Tim Beckley for the Conspiracy Journal, Unfair, Unbalanced, and certainly unedited on this one. Have a great evening.